Welcome to Lean Body Mind. My name is Steve, and once a month on this channel, I will be doing a book review. Maybe two. This month, it's two. Generally, these books are going to be some sort of self-help, life improvement sort of a book, or perhaps just some form of nonfiction. I don't think I'll be doing much fiction. I don't generally read a lot of fiction. But this month, the two books are The Highly Sensitive Person by Elaine Aron. I believe that's the way you pronounce her last name. I've got that on the Kindle. And Think Like a Monk by Jay Shetty. I think going forward, I will probably just do one book per month. Reading two and trying to juggle that was a little bit too much for me. However, it did work out well this month. It was a rather serendipitous, cross-pollination of the two books, and I'll get into that in just a minute. But first, I want to talk about the highly sensitive person. Now, the highly sensitive person, you hear that somebody's highly sensitive. I think nowadays we tend to think, oh, that's a snowflake. They're going to be really easily upset or offended by something that I say. That is not a highly sensitive person. And in fact, at the beginning of the book, there is a self-test. I think there's 24 different questions, true-false questions that you can answer to determine if you are an HSP. If you answer yes to more than 12, then you are. I believe I answered yes to 20 of the 24. So some of these things include, are you intuitive? Are you empathetic? Are you easily overstimulated by lots of lights and sounds and people? Do you find yourself very moved, sometimes even to tears, by music or the arts? Do people think maybe you're shy or introverted? All of these are characteristics of a highly sensitive person. So if you are not a highly sensitive person, odds are still pretty good that you have someone in your life who is one, whether that's a child or some other relative, a spouse, a coworker. So this book is not just for highly sensitive people, though it's certainly very valuable, I think, at least it was for me, but also to understand better the people in your lives who may be highly sensitive. Now, one of the burdens that we as HSPs suffer is the fact that people misunderstand us. Generally, we're misdiagnosed throughout our lives as being maybe fearful or introverted, although about 70% of HSPs are introverts, withdrawn, sort of daydreamy sort of people, and we may be picked on or bullied as children for these sort of behaviors of ours, often called things like a fraidy cat. And this book really spans, I was going to say like the entire life cycle of an HSP, but it's really all the different aspects and relationships and things that impact us throughout our life as HSPs, from childhood and adolescence to relationships, whether those are close relationships, romantic relationships, friendships. It talks about work relationships or relationships with teachers or authority figures. And then it gets into things like medical care, how to pick a doctor when you're an HSP, or a psychiatrist or psychologist, or what medications could you potentially take to deal with your highly sensitive nature. And as I read this book, it felt an awful lot like I was reading a biography of myself, especially my childhood. And one of the things that it talks about, especially in childhood, is how certain life events can make us even more sensitive as a highly sensitive person. So things like the loss of a parent or divorce or being bullied, there's a pretty significant list. And I found that a lot of them also applied to me. And reading this book brought this almost overwhelming wave of memories back to me. Things that were hurtful, either to me or things that I had done that were hurtful to others. The bullying that I experienced as a childhood, the sickness. I was a very sickly child. And it talks in the book about how certain emotional events manifest themselves then in physical sickness for us. And I missed a lot of school. I was afraid of school. I did not like school. I was afraid of other children. I was afraid of being bullied, whether that was by children or by the nuns at the Catholic school that I went to. I was very afraid of my dad. He was a very angry and violent man. And after my parents got divorced, whenever I would go to his house, his and his second wife's house for a weekend, I would always be sick immediately after. And I never, well, I didn't until reading this book, connect the fact that it was a physical manifestation of just being emotionally wrecked. The book also covers some of the things that we will do, we HSPs will do as we get older to try and manage our highly sensitive nature. Things like self medication, whether that's drugs or alcohol. We also can be very spiritual, though oftentimes not in a religious way, but sort of a non denominational spirituality. Things like meditation or recognizing that there's a higher power and that we're all connected in some way, that nature and God and us are connected, but not necessarily having a specific religion that we follow. And sometimes I think that could be just because we don't like to be around crowds and other people. It's overstimulating to us. So, really, what I appreciated most about this book was that it helped me understand myself better. It helped me to be able to look back on certain things and not be ashamed because I'm weird and different, but to understand that those are characteristics of a highly sensitive person, and that it was natural for me to react the way I did or to handle certain situations the way I did based on that. Still, there was a little bit of a conflict in me because while now I had a better understanding of some of these memories from my past, I still felt a bit ashamed for behaving the way that I did. And that actually made it good that I was also reading Think Like a Monk because there was a lot in that that sort of helped ground me. And I'll talk about that more in a moment. But first, I want to talk about a couple of the places that I have issues with the book, The Highly Sensitive Person. First off, whenever I read a book that starts talking about shopping around for a better doctor or the right doctor for you or the right psychologist for you, I get the impression that the author thinks I've got a better insurance plan than I do. Shopping for a doctor is not that easy. And I think, at least in my case, I kind of just acknowledge the fact that I've got what I've got and it is what it is. And aside from talking about how to shop for a doctor or shop for a psychiatrist or shop for a medication, there's not a great action plan in this book. Okay, I'm a highly sensitive person. What do I do with that? How do I better handle certain situations other than getting away from them? Is there, or taking a Valium or something like that? So I wish there was a better action plan. Finally, this book reads a little bit padded at times. It reminds me of when you're in high school or college and you've got a writing assignment and it needs to be 25 pages long and you feel you've written everything you can write and you're at 18 pages and you got to figure out how to fill this up with repeating yourself or some commentary that maybe isn't all that valuable. I really felt that way in some of these chapters, that it could have been tightened up by about a third. And I found this especially true in the chapter on psychology. This did not do it for me at all. I found myself flipping through that fairly rapidly. Still, just based on the understanding of myself that this book gave me, it makes it pretty easy to recommend. And it is on, I think it's called Prime Kindle. So if you've got Amazon Prime, you can download the ebook for free. But I will include a link to that as well as the paperback down in the description below. I really enjoyed Think Like a Monk by Jay Shetty. Now, I want to start by saying that this is not a religious book. Even though Jay is a Buddhist monk, this is not a book trying to convert you to Buddhism. It draws from a number of different religious or spiritual sources: Buddhism, Hinduism, Taoism, Christianity. But, as I said, it's not promoting a specific religion. Instead, Jay just grabs wisdom where wisdom is available in whatever text or teaching. And if that's something that you find off-putting, then probably don't read this book. The book is broken into three main sections: let go, grow, and give. So let go is about letting go of ourself, or I guess more to say our self-centeredness, taking a more objective look at our identity, where there is negativity in our lives that we create, where we have fears, where we are motivated perhaps by material possessions or the opinions of others, and letting that go. Grow is about developing our purpose and developing our understanding, both of ourselves and of others. And finally, give is about giving gratitude, giving of ourselves, being of service. Jay Shetty is a very good author. I found that as I read through this, I didn't feel that there was any padding, that there was any wasted space or wasted words. Additionally, for each of the theories that he talks about throughout the book, he will pepper in personal stories. Sometimes they are success stories, sometimes they are failure stories, but it gives more of a real life feel to what he's trying to teach in this, and I really appreciate that. What I loved most about this book, though, was chapter 8 on ego, and I read that at the exact perfect time because I was also reading The Highly Sensitive Person and had all of these memories that had come back, memories that I'm not proud of, memories that I had probably buried. And Jay talks about the importance of those memories and embracing them because they remind us that we're not perfect. They remind us we have something to learn from. We can look back on these behaviors as lessons on how to be better. And that reframing, it couldn't have come at a better time for me because I was really kind of upset, because I'm a highly sensitive person, from reading The Highly Sensitive Person. Now, oftentimes on a book like this, I'll have all kinds of these little post-it note tabs that I'll put in there for future reference. As I was reading this book, it became aware to me that this is a read twice sort of a book. You read it once and it sinks in a certain amount, and then you read it again in 6 months or a year, and probably at that point, then you start to say, oh, okay, aha. Now I've got a little bit of practical experience with this, and what you're telling me really resonates more so. And I've only marked it two places in this book. The first of which is probably my only complaint about the book because he has a meditation and breath work exercise that is 3 pages long. And as you read through it, first step, find a comfortable position, sitting in a chair, sitting upright with a cushion, or lying down. Step 2, close your eyes. Okay, what do I do for the next 2.5 pages? So what would have been great is if he would have just had a link, a QR code, for example, that you could scan and it would pull up the guided meditation or guided breath work with somebody narrating it, whether that's Jay or me, if you're looking for somebody, Jay. And in fact, I may, for just myself, record this as an MP3 and put it on my iPhone so that I can listen to it and follow along, because it looks like it would be a pretty good guided exercise here. The other little post-it that I put in here is perhaps what I feel is the most profound statement in this book, and maybe even the summary of what it is to think like a monk. And I'm going to read that to you right now. We seek to leave a place cleaner than we found it, people happier than when we found them, the world better than we found it. And if that's what it means to think like a monk, then it makes me wish everyone would think like a monk. So as I said, I will likely return to this book at some point in the future, probably within the next year, just because I think there is so much to learn from it that it's hard to absorb it all in one read. So I give this a big thumbs up. So the book that I will be reading in the month of April will be The First 20 Hours, How to Learn Anything Fast by Josh Kaufman. I figured this would probably be a good one to get in early on in the year because I want to keep learning stuff throughout the year, so I might as well do it fast. But that is it for this month. I appreciate you spending a little bit of time with me. I hope you found it valuable. Thanks for watching.